Commander Vex 9 stared at the holographic display with what could only be described as smug satisfaction. The execution chamber gleamed under artificial lights, cameras positioned at every conceivable angle. Oh, how the mighty Galactic Empire loved their spectacles. Nothing quite said "don't mess with us" like a good old-fashioned public execution broadcast across 17 star systems. Are we absolutely certain this will send the right message? Asked Sub-Commander Krill, his tentacles twitching nervously. Poor thing, always worried about the little details. Krill, my dear neurotic friend, Vex 9 replied, adjusting his ceremonial uniform with obvious pride. When you execute a terrorist's son on live broadcast, you don't just send a message, you carve it into the collective consciousness of every species watching. The human boy, barely 16 standard years old, sat strapped to the execution chair with remarkable composure. Marcus Kane, son of the infamous John Kane, better known throughout the galaxy as the Baba Yaga, the ghost, the nightmare, the human who single-handedly turned 3 Imperial fleets into floating scrap metal. Look at him, Vex 9 continued, pointing at the screen, sitting there like he's waiting for a dental appointment. Humans are such peculiar creatures, aren't they? No begging, no pleading, just acceptance. Marcus lifted his head slightly, those unnaturally calm brown eyes scanning the room. When he spoke, his voice carried across the chamber with startling clarity. You know, Marcus said, almost conversationally, my father always told me that fear makes people do stupid things. Really, really stupid things. The guards shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a Zephyrian with impressive battle scars, actually took a step back. Vex 9 noticed this with considerable annoyance. Silence the prisoner, he ordered through the comm. We're not here for his philosophical insights. But Marcus wasn't finished. He also said that the Empire would eventually make a mistake so monumentally stupid that it would essentially solve itself. I wonder, is this that mistake? Vex 9's 4 eyes narrowed. The audacity of this human whelp. Begin the broadcast. Let's get this over with. The red recording light activated, and suddenly 17 star systems were watching. Trillions of beings tuned in to witness Imperial justice. The ratings would be astronomical. Citizens of the Empire. Vex 9 began, his voice carrying that practiced authority that had served him well through dozens of these ceremonies. Today we demonstrate what happens to those who dare challenge Imperial authority. Marcus Kane, son of the terrorist known as the Baba Yaga, has been found guilty of sedition, conspiracy, and crimes against the state. The camera zoomed in on Marcus's face, still calm, still unsettlingly serene. If Vex 9 didn't know better, he'd think the boy was actually amused. Any last words? Vex 9 asked, following protocol. Usually prisoners either begged for mercy or spat defiance. Both reactions played well for the cameras. Marcus smiled. Actually smiled. Just one thing, Commander. You might want to check your perimeter sensors. What? Your perimeter sensors. You know, those early warning systems that are supposed to alert you when something approaches your station. They've been down for about 3 minutes now. Vex 9 felt a chill run down his spine. Security, report. Static. Security, respond immediately. More static. Sub-Commander Krill's tentacles were now writhing in full panic mode. Sir, I'm not getting any response from, well, anyone outside this chamber. That's impossible, Vex 9 snapped. This is a Class A Imperial facility. We have 3 full battalions of guards, automated defense systems, and... The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in ominous red. Marcus Kane sat in his execution chair, still smiling, looking for all the world like someone who knew the punchline to a joke nobody else had heard yet. You know what the really funny part is? Marcus said into the sudden quiet. You broadcast this across 17 star systems. Every single being in known space now knows exactly where I am, but and more importantly, the main blast door exploded inward. They know exactly where you are. Through the smoke and debris came a figure that made hardened Imperial soldiers question their career choices. John Kane stepped into the chamber like death itself had decided to take a casual stroll. Black tactical gear, weapons that looked like they'd been designed by someone with serious anger management issues, and eyes that had seen too much and forgiven too little. "Hello, son," he said calmly, as if they'd run into each other at a space cafe. "Hi, Dad, you're early." Traffic was light. Vex 9's military training kicked in, overriding his very reasonable desire to hide under the nearest piece of furniture. Impossible. No one can infiltrate a class of facility. The security protocols alone. John Kane turned those terrible eyes on him. Security protocols are written by committee. I work alone. You're one human. One. How did you? Math, John replied simply. I counted your guards, counted your weapons, counted your defenses. Then I subtracted them from the equation. The first wave of reinforcements burst through the side entrances. The Imperial stormtroopers, armed with the latest pulse weapons and powered armor. Elite soldiers, trained from birth to fight and die for the Empire. They lasted approximately 15 seconds. John Kane moved like liquid violence, every motion economical and devastating. Weapons appeared in his hands as if materialized from thin air. Each shot found its mark with surgical precision. Each step took him closer to his son. Fascinating, Marcus observed, still strapped to the chair. I count 37 hostiles eliminated in under 20 seconds. That's got to be some kind of record. 38, his father corrected, putting a plasma bolt through the last trooper's helmet. You missed the sniper on the upper catwalk. Ah, there he is. Thanks. Vex 9 found himself backing toward the far wall, his ceremonial weapon shaking in his hands. You can't do this. This is being broadcast live. The entire galaxy is watching. John Kane paused in his methodical advance. Good. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when you touch my family. But the Empire, the consequences, you'll start a war. Commander, John said, his voice dropping to something barely above a whisper, I am the war. Or reinforcements poured in. Wave after wave of Imperial soldiers, each group more heavily armed than the last. The chamber became a whirlwind of plasma fire, explosions, and the terrible arithmetic of violence. Through it all, John Kane advanced with the relentless patience of a natural force. Not fast, not flashy, just absolutely inevitable. You know what I love about live broadcasts? Marcus asked conversationally, raising his voice over the sounds of combat. No editing, no spin, just raw, unfiltered truth. Sub-Commander Krill, who had been attempting to crawl behind a console, looked up with desperate hope. Truth. What truth? The truth that my father isn't just some terrorist. He's a reminder, a living example of what happens when you push humans too far. John Kane reached the execution chair, his hands working swiftly on the restraints. Sorry I'm late. Had to make a few stops on the way in. No problem. The conversation was quite educational. I learned a lot about Imperial security protocols. All cleared? All cleared. The restraints fell away, and Marcus stood, rubbing his wrists. So what's the exit strategy? Same as the entry strategy. Through them. The blast doors sealed shut. Emergency bulkheads slammed down. The chamber's automated defense systems activated, filling the air with lethal energy beams. None of it mattered. John Kane had studied this facility for months, memorizing every corridor, every weakness, every possible angle of attack. You planned this, Vex 9 accused, his voice rising to a pitch that would have been embarrassing if anyone cared about his dignity at this point. You wanted us to capture him. Obviously, John replied. How else was I supposed to find out where you were hiding? But the risk, your own son. Marcus and John exchanged a look that spoke of years of shared understanding. Commander, Marcus said patiently, have you ever heard the phrase trust fall? What? It's a human concept. You close your eyes, fall backward, and trust that someone will catch you. I've been doing trust falls with my father since I was old enough to walk. He's never dropped me yet, John added, checking his weapons with practiced efficiency. The chamber shuddered as something massive impacted the outer hull. Then again, and again. What now? Vex 9 demanded. That would be the rest of the family, Marcus explained. Dad doesn't usually work alone on rescue missions. Through the reinforced viewports, shapes moved in the darkness of space. Human ships, sleek and deadly, their weapons carving through Imperial defenses like they were made of tissue paper. At the center of the formation, a massive dreadnought that looked like it had been designed by someone who understood the aesthetic value of controlled fury. The Widowmaker, John said, noting Vex 9's expression. My wife's ship. She's protective. Your wife. Former Imperial Admiral Sarah Kane. She didn't take kindly to you threatening her son. The implications hit Vex 9 like a physical blow. Sarah Kane, hero of the Proxima campaign. The woman who had single-handedly reorganized the Imperial Navy's tactical doctrine. She had vanished 3 years ago, along with her entire battle group. The Empire had assumed she was dead. She defected? She evolved, John corrected. Turns out, when you spend enough time fighting monsters, you start to question who the real monsters are. The chamber's communication system crackled to life. A woman's voice, crisp and professional, with an undertone of barely controlled fury. Attention, Imperial facility. This is Admiral Sarah Kane, commanding the Free Human Fleet. You have exactly 60 seconds to surrender before I demonstrate why the Empire used to pay me to break things. Vex 9 stared at the display showing the human fleet systematically dismantling his station's defenses. Free human fleet? There's no such thing. There is now, Marcus said cheerfully. Amazing what you can accomplish when you stop asking permission. 45 seconds, Sarah's voice announced. She's counting down, John observed. She always counts down, Marcus agreed. It's part of her process. Process? Mum's very methodical about destroying things. It's actually quite beautiful to watch, in a terrifying sort of way. The station shuddered again as another section of the outer hull was carved away. Through the chaos, Vex 9 could see Imperial ships attempting to respond, only to be systematically eliminated by the human fleet's coordinated fire. 30 seconds. You have to stop this, Vex 9 pleaded. The Empire will retaliate. They'll hunt you across the galaxy. John Kane paused in his preparations, looking at the commander with something that might have been pity. Commander, let me explain something about humans. We're persistence predators. We don't run down our prey with speed or strength. We just keep coming, and coming, and coming. Thus, until our prey collapses from exhaustion. 15 seconds. But there are billions of us in the Empire. Trillions. You can't fight them all. We don't have to fight them all, Marcus said. We just have to make them decide that fighting us costs more than leaving us alone. 10 seconds. This is madness. No, John Kane said, placing a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. This is family. The countdown reached 0. The viewports filled with brilliant light as the Widowmaker's main guns spoke. Sections of the Imperial facility simply ceased to exist, vaporized by weapons that had been designed to crack planet-sized fortresses. The message was clear: surrender or be erased from existence. All Imperial personnel, Sarah's voice announced over the comm, you have fought bravely, but this engagement is over. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the Articles of War. Continue fighting, and you will be treated according to the laws of physics. The fighting stopped. Throughout the station, weapons were laid down, hands were raised, and the last organized resistance to the Kane family ended with a whimper rather than a bang. Well, Marcus said, stretching as if he'd just finished a particularly satisfying nap, that was educational. Always is, his father agreed. Ready to go home? More than ready. But first, Marcus turned to face the still active broadcast camera, his expression shifting from casual amusement to something far more serious. "I have something to say to the viewing audience." The camera automatically adjusted focus, framing the young man who had just witnessed his father dismantle an entire Imperial facility with surgical precision. Behind him, the chamber showed the aftermath of controlled violence, disabled weapons, unconscious guards, and the very clear message that the Empire's most secure facility had been compromised by a single human and his son. "My name is Marcus Kane," he began, his voice carrying clearly across the broadcast. "Son of John Kane, also known as the Baba Yaga, son of Sarah Kane, former Imperial Admiral and current commander of the Free Human Fleet. I want you to remember this moment. Not because of what happened here, but because of what it represents." He paused, letting his words sink in across 17 star systems. "The Empire tells you that humans are weak, that we're scattered, divided, leaderless. They tell you that we're nothing more than a minor inconvenience to be managed and controlled. Today you've seen the truth. We're not weak. We're not scattered. And we're definitely not leaderless." The camera captured every word, every gesture, broadcasting them to trillions of viewers across known space. "What you've witnessed here isn't terrorism. It's not rebellion. It's something far more fundamental. It's a parent protecting their child. It's a family standing together against those who would do them harm. And it's a species that has decided it will no longer bow to those who claim dominion over them." Marcus stepped closer to the camera, his young face carrying an expression of absolute certainty. "To every human watching this broadcast, remember, you are not alone. To every non-human who has suffered under Imperial rule, remember, you are not forgotten. And to the Empire itself." He smiled, and in that smile was the genetic legacy of both his parents, the controlled fury of the Baba Yaga, and the strategic brilliance of a tactical genius. "Remember that you started this. We're just going to finish it." The broadcast ended as the chamber's power systems finally failed, plunging everything into darkness. But across 17 star systems, the message had been received. The Empire had just made the mistake John Kane had been waiting for his entire life. They had given him a cause worth fighting for. And more importantly, they had given him a galaxy full of witnesses to ensure that everyone knew exactly who was responsible for what came next. The war was about to begin, and this time the humans weren't going to be asking for permission. 3 months after the broadcast that shattered the Empire's illusion of invincibility, the Admiral Thix Prime found himself staring at casualty reports that defied all logical explanation. His flagship, the Dominator, drifted through the wreckage of what had once been the Kepler defense fleet. Around him, the bridge crew moved with the nervous efficiency of beings who had learned that their universe was far more dangerous than they'd previously imagined. "Explain to me again," Thix Prime said, his voice carrying the weight of barely contained frustration, "how a single human vessel destroyed 47 Imperial warships." Commander Yila 7, his intelligence officer, consulted her datapad with obvious reluctance. According to surviving reports, the ship appeared to be a modified civilian transport. In minimal armor, basic weapons. By all tactical assessments, it should have been destroyed within minutes. And yet it systematically eliminated our entire patrol fleet, using what our analysts are calling impossible maneuvers. The ship moved like it was ignoring several fundamental laws of physics. Thix Prime's 4 arms gestured in exasperation. "Ships don't ignore physics, Commander. Physics is what keeps us from flying into suns or getting torn apart by gravity wells." "Yes, sir, that's what makes this so troubling." The tactical display showed the engagement from multiple angles. The human ship, barely larger than a corvette, had woven through Imperial formations like a dancer threading through raindrops. Every shot had found its mark. Every maneuver had been perfectly timed. It was as if the pilot had known exactly where each Imperial ship would be before they'd even decided to move there. Who was flying it? According to intercepted communications, someone calling themselves Ghost 7. The initial analysis suggests it might be another member of the Kane family. Thax Prime felt that familiar chill that had been plaguing Imperial commanders ever since the Marcus Kane incident. How many of them are there? That's unclear, sir. Intelligence estimates suggest the Kane family has been operating covertly for years, establishing networks, recruiting assets, and preparing for exactly this kind of large-scale conflict. Preparing for war against the entire empire. Preparing for war against everyone who threatens their family, sir. The distinction appears to be somewhat academic from their perspective. The communications officer, a nervous Quillan whose tentacles hadn't stopped twitching since the battle, looked up from his station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission." It's from the human ship." On screen. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a young woman who couldn't have been more than 25 standard years old. She had the same unsettling composure as Marcus Kane, the same calm eyes that seemed to see too much. When she spoke, her voice carried the casual confidence of someone discussing the weather. "Admiral Thax Prime, I presume. I'm Jessica Kane. People call me Ghost 7. Another Kane." "Of course. What do you want?" "To deliver a message. Actually, several messages. First, my compliments on your tactical deployment. The classic Imperial formation, properly executed. Under normal circumstances, it would have been quite effective." "And the second message?" "The second message is for your crew. Specifically, the 43 survivors floating in escape pods out there. They fought well, followed orders, and deserve to go home to their families." Thax Prime glanced at his sensor officer, who confirmed with a nod. 43 life signs detected in the debris field, exactly as she'd said. "And the third message?" Jessica's expression hardened slightly. "The third message is for the Empire. Stop hunting my family. Stop threatening human colonies. Stop pretending that you have the right to decide who lives and who dies. Because if you don't..." She paused, and for a moment Thax Prime caught a glimpse of something that made his blood run cold. It was the same look he'd seen in John Kane's eyes during that broadcast. The look of someone who had counted all the weapons, all the defenses, all the lives standing between them and their objective, and found the mathematics acceptable. If you don't, then what happened here today will seem like a minor inconvenience compared to what comes next. You're threatening the Empire? I'm stating a fact. The Empire made a choice when it executed my brother on live broadcast. Now you have to live with the consequences of that choice. Your brother wasn't executed. He was rescued. Jessica smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made veteran warriors check their weapons and consider early retirement. Oh, Admiral, you still don't understand, do you? Marcus wasn't the one being executed. He was the execution. The transmission ended, leaving Thax Prime staring at a blank screen and trying to process what he'd just heard. What did she mean by that? Commander Yilla 7 was already working at her station, pulling up files and cross-referencing data with the desperate efficiency of someone who had just realized they were missing a crucial piece of information. "Sir, I'm reviewing the original broadcast from the facility. According to the logs, Marcus Kane was captured during a raid on a mining colony. But if I check the colony's status, her tentacles went completely still. The colony is gone, sir, completely evacuated. Every human resident, every piece of valuable equipment, every document in the administrative center, all removed 3 days before the raid. That's impossible. Our intelligence reports showed active mining operations right up until the raid." "Yes, sir, but according to these transport logs, the mining equipment was holographic projections. The workers were paid actors. The entire operation was an elaborate stage set, designed to make us think we were capturing a valuable target. The implications hit Thax Prime like a physical blow. They wanted him to be captured. They wanted him to be executed, sir, on live broadcast, in front of 17 star systems. But why?" "Because," said a new voice from the communication system, "they needed everyone to see what happens when you threaten a human family." The view screen activated again, but this time it showed a different face. older, scarred, with eyes that had seen too much violence and learned to find comfort in it. John Kane, the Baba Yaga himself, sat in what appeared to be the command center of a massive starship. "Admiral Thix Prime," he said, his voice carrying the casual politeness of someone making small talk at a social gathering. "I hope you don't mind the intrusion. I thought it was time we had a proper conversation. How did you penetrate our communication systems?" "I didn't. Your systems are actually quite secure. I'm broadcasting from your own ship." "That's impossible. We're on full alert. Every corridor is monitored, every access point is sealed." "Yes, you are. Excellent security, by the way. I had to work quite hard to get aboard without being detected. It took me almost 3 whole minutes." Thix Prime's security chief, a heavily armed Coraxian who had never lost a fight in his life, slowly reached for his weapon. John Kane's voice stopped him. "Commander Vex-Tool, isn't it? I wouldn't. Your reaction time is impressive, but I've been standing behind you for the past 5 minutes. If I'd wanted to hurt anyone, this conversation would have gone very differently." The security chief froze, his 4 eyes slowly rotating to look over his shoulder. There was nothing there, just empty space and the familiar hum of the ship's engines. "Cute trick," Vex-Tool growled. "But parlor games won't save you when the rest of the fleet arrives." "What rest of the fleet?" "The 37 Imperial cruisers currently en route to this position. They'll be here in less than an hour." "Oh, those ships. Admiral, you might want to check your long-range sensors." Thix Prime's sensor officer worked frantically at his station, his face growing paler with each passing second. "Sir, the fleet, they're not responding to communications. And their engine signatures, they're not moving toward our position anymore." "Where are they?" They're moving away, sir. At maximum speed. Away from us, away from the engagement zone, away from everything." John Kane's voice carried a note of what might have been amusement. "Your reinforcements received a message about 30 minutes ago. A very simple message, really. Just a demonstration of what happens to Imperial fleets that threaten human families." "What kind of demonstration?" "The kind that involves the complete destruction of the 7th Imperial battle group. All 89 ships vaporized in less than 10 minutes. My wife's work, actually. She's become quite artistic about these things." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of failing equipment and the distant sound of something that might have been praying coming from the communications station. "This is terrorism," Thix Prime said, his voice barely above a whisper. "No, Admiral, this is war. The difference is that in terrorism, innocents are targeted to make a political point. In war, the combatants are eliminated to achieve strategic objectives. Your fleet was eliminated because it posed a threat to human colonies. Your reinforcements fled because they understood the mathematics of the situation." "Mathematics?" "Simple addition and subtraction. The Empire has approximately 40,000 combat-capable vessels. We've destroyed 312 of them in the past month. At this rate, you'll be out of ships in roughly 10 standard years. The Empire has trillions of citizens, millions of worlds. You can't fight us all. We don't need to fight you all. We just need to make the cost of fighting us higher than the cost of leaving us alone. Basic economics, really." Thix Prime found himself staring at the tactical display, watching the dots that represented his reinforcements continue their retreat. "What do you want?" "I want you to deliver a message to Imperial Command. Tell them that the Free Human Fleet is officially withdrawing from Imperial space. We're taking our colonies, our ships, our people, and we're leaving. We have no interest in conquest, no desire to rule over anyone else, and no intention of interfering with Imperial affairs. And if the Empire refuses to let you go, then we'll demonstrate the difference between humans who want to be left alone and humans who have decided that being left alone is no longer an option." The transmission shifted, and suddenly the view screen was filled with images from across the galaxy. Human colonies, previously thought to be under firm Imperial control, were systematically evacuating. Massive transport ships, clearly of human design, were loading entire populations and disappearing into hyperspace. "We've been preparing for this for years," John Kane's voice continued over the images. "Every human colony, every human settlement, every human family that wants to be free. We're taking them all. The Empire is welcome to keep the empty worlds. You can't evacuate entire star systems. We can, and we are. Admiral, you're looking at the largest population movement in galactic history. 17 billion humans, choosing freedom over security, choosing family over empire." The images continued to scroll past. Factories being dismantled and loaded onto transport ships. Entire cities disappearing as their populations were relocated. Strategic resources being extracted or destroyed to prevent Imperial use. It was a logistical operation on a scale that defied comprehension. "The economic impact alone will cripple dozens of sectors," Thex Prime said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who was beginning to understand the true scope of what he was witnessing. "Yes, it will. That's the point. The Empire built its economy on the assumption that humans would always be available to work, to fight, to die for Imperial objectives. Now you'll have to find someone else to exploit. This will destabilize the entire galaxy. Probably. But that's what happens when you build a civilization on the backs of people who never agreed to carry it." The tactical display showed new contacts appearing at the edge of sensor range. Massive ships, larger than anything in the Imperial fleet, moving with the coordinated precision of a well-practiced military operation. "What are those?" "Evacuation fleet. They're here to collect the crew of this ship and transport them to a neutral world where they can decide for themselves whether they want to continue serving the Empire or find a new line of work." "You're taking prisoners?" "I'm offering employment counseling." "There's a difference. Anyone who wants to keep fighting can return to Imperial space with full military honors. Anyone who's tired of being used as a weapon can start over somewhere else." The massive ships moved closer, and Thex Prime could see that they were clearly designed for mass transport rather than combat. Passenger ships, fitted with advanced life support systems and medical facilities. They looked like they'd been built specifically for exactly this kind of operation. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day the Empire first decided that humans were property to be managed rather than people to be respected. Some of us have been working on this for 30 years, Admiral. Others have been working on it for 3 generations. And if we refuse to let you go, if we hunt you down, then you'll learn why my son called me the Baba Yaga. Because some monsters are real, Admiral, and some of them have families to protect." The evacuation ships extended docking tubes to the Dominator, and within minutes, Imperial crew members were being transported to safety. Not as prisoners, but as refugees from a war they had never asked to fight. "I don't understand," Thex Prime said, watching his crew being treated with courtesy and respect by their supposed enemies. "Why show mercy to your enemies?" "Because they're not our enemies. They're victims of the same system we're fighting against. Most of them joined the Imperial Navy because they needed work, or because their families needed protection, or because they genuinely believed they were serving a noble cause. And now? Now they have a choice. They can return to the Empire and continue serving a system that uses them as expendable resources. Or they can help us build something better." The evacuation was remarkably efficient. Within an hour, every member of the Dominator's crew had been safely transported to the human ships. Only Thex Prime remained, standing alone on the bridge of his flagship, watching the free human fleet prepare to vanish into hyperspace. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you deliver my message to Imperial Command. Tell them that the age of empire is over. Tell them that humanity has chosen freedom, and we're willing to pay any price to keep it. And if they refuse to listen, then they'll learn that the Baba Yaga was never just one man. He was an idea. A promise, a guarantee that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost." The human ships began to disappear into hyperspace, taking with them the largest refugee fleet in galactic history. Soon only the Dominator remained, drifting alone in the debris field that had once been the Kepler defense fleet. Thix Prime stood on his empty bridge, surrounded by the silence of a ship without a crew, and tried to process what he had just witnessed. The Empire had lost more than ships and soldiers. It had lost the very foundation of its power, the belief that resistance was futile. As he prepared to send his report to Imperial Command, he realized that he was no longer just a military officer delivering intelligence. He was a witness to the birth of something new, something that would reshape the galaxy, whether the Empire was ready or not. The free human fleet had vanished into the vastness of space, carrying with them the promise of a future where freedom was not a privilege to be granted, but a right to be defended. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Baba Yaga and his family continued their work, teaching the galaxy that some monsters were worth having on your side. The war was over before it had truly begun. The humans had won by refusing to fight it on the Empire's terms.